In this video, I'm going to answer, should you actually get an online PhD or an executive doctorate online? So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Mastak. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I want to pay the favor forward to help you out as much as I possibly can. So Austin asks, I know there is a stigma for online doctoral programs, but I think COVID might cause a reconceptualization of the validity of distance learning. Can you respond to that? So Austin, thanks again for following along. I know you've been following along for quite some time now. It's amazing that you do this and deeply appreciate it. Thank you. So the problem is not necessarily a program is online, a doctoral program is online. The problem is actually the research that's being produced at those particular institutions that rely primarily on sort of online course offerings. If you look at a lot of the sort of top schools, you could do a lot of stuff online. In fact, a lot of folks actually do live away from the different institutions, right? So there are faculty members that fly in from place to place. They might live on one side of the coast and they fly into a specific school and they live on another side, or go to work at a different side, or they do telecommuting all the time. It's not the issue with being online or distance or anything like that. It's really just the degree of research that's being generated at those particular institutions. And it is kind of tricky to sort of think about what that actually looks like and what that actually means. But if you're in an online program, sometimes you do realize that there is greater difficulty with doing some of these things. So I've got nothing against online programs in any sort of way, but there is this the degree of research that's actually being produced is a little different between those different institutions, even though people can treat institutions like the top ones in the United States as sort of online anyways. They telecommute all the time. So what you're looking at is, just the sort of structure and what's happening with these particular programs. And what you should be looking at instead is, not the nature of that it's an online program. That's not really, a big sort of deal in any sort of way. In fact, I really do think that things are going to be progressing considerably towards sort of more online telecommunicating, teleworking and being more used to this, right? So everybody's used to Zoom at this moment. But what you should be looking at is what's going on in terms of the research, in terms of what people are doing and how they're interacting with different folks that are there, right? So in order to give you sort of good advice with this, what you should be looking at is, look at what people have done in the past from those particular institutions and where they're getting placed. It's not necessarily because that they're in an online program, but often it is a result of what research they're doing, what they're working on, all of those different things. And we do know that there is some minor effects that are associated to certain institutions or certain class of institutions that might sort of have residual effects on those particular institutions, sort of like getting through a glass ceiling or something like that. It's really tricky, right, to get in. If you're at the top program, then it's unlikely that they're going to hire somebody from a vastly different sort of status institution, but you can sort of meet in the same, or you can sort of be hired on within the same sort of institutional standard. But over time, you can build your research career and do really well and actually eventually get to a really good institution that you might consider really good, whatever that looks like for you, right? So look at where past students have gone and where they're placing in terms of what the program actually looks like and what they're doing. That's going to be a really, really big predictor in terms of where they're going to go. Now, that changes over time. So some go up in terms of status of institution, and some institutions go down in terms of where they're sending. But even at the top institutions, people go all over the place. It's not unknown to, if you're going from the very best program in the world and getting one place that you think was below you, or somebody goes to another place that you think is above, or whatever, or a place, I guess, lateral at that moment. It's just that there's a lot of variability, a lot of heterogeneity in the market, and you have to recognize that. And so you'd have to sort of look at what the trends are, where the current students are going, who they are, what projects they're working on. That's an important thing. Is look at the degree of maybe either sophistication or sort of interestingness of the projects that the different PhD students are working on, doctoral students are working on. And you can get a sense of what the sort of research environment is at those particular institutions. That's a really good signal of what's going on. So just actually talking to them and seeing if the people are, lighting up when you talk to them and they're working on something that's really intense or really interesting, or you can follow along, all of those kind of things are really good signals of good PhD programs in anywhere, and it doesn't matter where you are, right? So that's an important thing to think about. The other thing that you should be thinking about and looking at is, who are the faculty that are there, and where did they do their research, and where did they come from, and what are they doing? There's lots of places in Europe that have kind of sprung up in the last few years, in the last few decades, that are really, really new. But there's incredible people at these particular institutions. And they're growing and becoming a lot better because everybody recognizes that those institutions are really good. And so you might want to sort of think about that yes, it does change, but you can, what ends up happening is sort of this chicken and the egg thing, right? So once you get people that are interested in the same thing and they're excited about this thing, then they're more likely to participate. But if of a group of faculty or just people in general, of doing anything, if you could get great people together and they're interested in it, then you can do a lot with that. But if you can't get that, then you don't have that sort of core growth that's going on. So really look at that and kind of understand that. So another thing to do is, see how other people in the field are sort of viewing that particular program as legitimate, in the sense, if somebody is maybe at a lateral institution, or somebody in the field, is doing something, maybe look at past graduates where they're being placed. Maybe look at what you'd consider a lateral school where they are placing their students are going. And so you can get a little bit more of a sense of what's actually going on. Sometimes you can get these sort of rankings to sort of figure out what's a lateral move, or what's a higher up move, or something like that. And you can get a sense of what's going on. And there's all sorts of rankings that are out there that you can look at. Another sort of indication you might want to look at is looking at the salaries of graduates at different programs and what they're doing. It's not a great indicator, but if you are going into the different doctoral programs that are out there, you might want to ask that, right? Like, how easy is it that these people are actually getting jobs, and what is the salary of what they're doing, right? So you can get a sense of, that's more sort of discipline based, that you can sort of get a sense of what's going on in the market, right? So if it's hard for them to get a job, if there's people sort of dropping out a lot, and, that it's hard for them to get a job. So let's say half the people drop out, and so that's 50%, right? And you are going to be making, let's say you make $100,000 at it. So the odds are of you getting through, your expected value is $50,000 at the end of it, right? So that's not really all that good. So you can kind of do a rough calculation like that of what it looks like across the board. If it's easier to stay in the program and it's harder to sort of leave, and you have a higher salary at the end of it, that's probably a good sign of what's actually going on. So look at those different things. You can look at those indicators. You can ask people. It's not scary to ask people, and I think those are all legitimate things to sort of investigate and get a sense of what's actually going on. So, I don't think it is, I really truly don't think that online programs are, that they actually are discredited in any sort of way. It's just that you have to look at what's actually going on behind the scenes in terms of where those people are going, who's actually there. It matters so much in terms of what's going on with the different programs and stuff. It's not online. It's just like, a building does not make the institution. A building does not make a university. Who cares about the building, right? It could be your building that you have could be a total terrible building that's falling apart, but if there's great people out there, that's what matters more, in any business, right? So you have to really recognize that in terms of what's going on. And if you're viewing this as a business or an organization, you really have to sort of think about that. So look at the people that are there. Is it a good culture? Are they having fun? Is the research really rigorous? Is there great ideas that are coming from there? Are they winning awards? All those kind of things. Those are the things that you should be looking at rather than, is this online or not online, if that makes any sense. So I think that those are great sort of indicators versus, anything that you'd sort of think about. So with that, what I'm saying, like the sort of the tacit, cultural stuff are really good indicators versus, like this is an online program or this program is in, this region of the country or not in this region of the country, all that kind of stuff that you'd think about that often people think is like the real predictors. But no, the real predictors are people and culture and what ideas are being generated in terms of what's going on, in terms of where you're going to place and what's going to go on. So really think about that in terms of what you're doing. It's a lot more subtler than what you think is actually going on. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Austin, you know what the deal is with this. If I answer one of your questions, you have to do something nice to somebody else. You could do something like pass on this video to somebody else and help them out, or you could go and shovel some snow. You can, for your neighbor, whatever it is, just go do something nice for somebody. And really pass on the goodwill and make sure everybody else is just having a great day. So it's more for you than it is for me. So with that, good luck. And thanks so much for following along. It's amazing. Really, really appreciate it. Anyways, take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.